Hi, my name is Sam Robison and I work for the Social Research and Evaluation Center at Louisiana State University. And this video is going to be a short video to provide some guidance regarding how to enter data into the Qualtrics web portal for the State Opioid Response Grant for the GPRA client level surveys. So you will have received an email that's going to cover all this information, but because the information, it may be a bit of information, it may seem a little bit complex, at least initially. We're sending out a supplemental video to help support your understanding of the system and your ability to use the system. So to start out, most of you probably know by now that SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, approved two surveys. Really, it's a single survey, a paper survey for this grant. But there's two kinds of surveys embedded within it. One of which is a baseline survey, the other of which is a follow-up or a discharge type of survey. So in order to best facilitate data entry, we've created two separate links that you can use to enter these data into our system. The first of which you're seeing on your screen now. This is the baseline or intake form, the initial intake form. And then the other, which I just clicked to here, is the follow-up and discharge form. There are links to both of these in the email that you have received. Keep in mind, the follow-up should be done 6 months after the initial baseline, and discharge is done at the completion of your interaction with a client. So you'll do 3 surveys per client, but there are 2 forms because both the follow-up and discharge use this same form that you're seeing on your screen here. Keep track of these 2 links. We would encourage you to bookmark these in a browser that works well for you. I like to use Chrome when I'm using this Qualtrics system. It seems to work pretty well, but you can test out some other things and see what works best for you. But in addition to bookmarking it and having the right links, check on the screen because you'll see that it'll say for follow-up and discharge only here for the follow-up and discharge form, and at the bottom here for intake use only means for the baseline form. So the next thing we wanted to let you know was that your experience entering data into these surveys may differ a bit from case to case. And the reason for that is that we have built in some logic to the surveys so that if there's a section that's not applicable based on something else you previously entered into the survey, then it'll skip through that section. You won't have to see it or fill it out. So that should help facilitate ease of data entry. But don't be alarmed if that's the case, unless you notice that something's wrong and it's skipping a section it shouldn't be or something like that, in which case double check and make sure you enter the right information first. You can navigate going back through the survey a bit. Or if you do notice there's any technical issue that we may have missed, please let us know. Our email is included in the email that we sent you. It's srec@lsu.edu. So if you want to enter some test data to pilot test these forms, that's fine. You can do that. Just be sure that you let us know which cases were test cases so that we can delete them out. So keep track of any test or fake IDs you use and the date that they were entered. Email us at srec@lsu.edu and we will delete these from the system. Another thing that's important to point out here is that once you begin entering a case into the electronic system, you should enter it all at a single time. Meaning you shouldn't enter it partway through and then come back to the survey later in the day or later in the week. That can create some problems from the way that Qualtrics functions. You may find a situation where you enter it partway and you come back later in the day and it brings you right back where you were and it seems that everything's working. But sometimes that may not be the case, and there's some technical reasons why. So what we would encourage you to do in order to reduce your own frustrations and ensure that your data is entered fully and validly, try to enter it all at one time. Toward that end, the Office of Behavioral Health has recommended that all of you enter in your GPRA surveys through the paper form first, and then come back and enter it into the electronic system. The reason for this is that we did some pilot testing and found out that there are situations where clients may only be seen for a little while, and one day they may finish the survey another day, or there may be some planned services that get filled out maybe a couple of days after they see the initial client. And if that's the case and you're trying to enter data into this form, it can create problems where if you start entering data and then you're not able to finish entering the data, it could create some frustrations. Unfortunately, that's one of the limitations of the system we had to go with here, was that you do need to enter it in at one time if at all possible. So we would encourage you to do that. If you when you have completed entering in a survey, you'll see a given screen, and I can show you here. This is kind of a small version of it, but basically something like this that says, "We thank you for your time spent taking the survey. Your response has been recorded." When you see that and the completion bar at the top is all the way to the end of the one, then you will know that you've submitted all the information for that survey. So make sure you see that screen and get all the way through before you stop, if at all possible. And that'll help ensure that your data gets correctly entered and saved and stored, and that it can be reported. Let's see. The other thing, we sent you, along with the email, including the links to these two surveys, some documents to facilitate your collection of the data. One of which was well, two of these are from SAMHSA directly. One's called a question-by-question guide, or Q-by-Q guide. The other is a frequently asked questions guide. These were designed for this SOR grant, and so you will probably want to review those. If for no other reason, they can help to answer programmatic types of questions, that how you should interpret different concepts and indicators when you're filling it out through the survey. So be sure to look at those and understand what they're suggesting of you. Well, there are three other documents that we are including from SHREC, one of which is a description of how to develop your ID numbers for each client. So now that I've gone through kind of the major things in the email, I wanted to walk you through a couple of things to consider when you're entering in these forms. For the most part, these will be fairly straightforward and will be something you're fairly accustomed to, because they do replicate what is in the paper form. But there are some situations, which is why those guidance documents have been included, where you'll need to refer to those documents to make sure that it's in the right format, or you understand what's being asked of you, things like that. But I did want to walk you through a little bit of this to give you a taste of it. So of course you'll start here at the bottom, clicking this little arrow, and then it'll bring you to the first page, which is asking some records kinds of questions. Many of the indicators for this survey are required, and in fact we won't be able to submit these to SAMHSA unless you enter them in. But the system will facilitate you entering in all required data. So if I try to click this button to go to the next page, you'll see that I get these error messages in red, and they'll highlight the indicator in a sort of purple color saying, please answer this question. So I have to answer all of these. So I'm just going to pick out random information here. Test site, Joe Smith, and client ID, we'll say it's 5Z, client number 25, intake. Here's the other issue of something that you'll run across from time to time. Some of these fields have to be entered in a certain format in order for it to be submitted. So for date here, if I just say January 2020 and try to enter it, all the other fields are okay and it lets me submit, but this one will not, because I didn't enter it in this format, which is month, month, day, day, year, year. So we'll do it that way. We'll do January 1st, 2020 in the same format, and then it allows us to move on. So some of these are required sections, but some are not. And this is actually an illustration here. On this whole page, it's asking about diagnoses, and it's possible that you'll see clients who don't have any diagnoses whatsoever. And so, if you click moving forward, it'll just let us move on. So again, this is stuff that as you go through, you'll get a better feel for how the system works in this regard. The instructions that we sent should facilitate your understanding, as should some instructions on the screen. But if you run across any problems with this as well, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Okay? Thank you.